Got the best coaches in the game, we really ain't playing. We regroup up in the Slack chat where the coaches debrief. We be piecing these puzzles, occupy the chunk of the pie. Ain't no lie when we hit the block, helmet's casket is top. You be seeing helmet after helmet, helmet after helmet. First place, second place, fifth place, eighth place, 12th place, 15, 16, 20. So many helmets, you got blurred vision, we got too many. Get your check. Oh man, shit. They got us fucked up. Army, regroup. We pledge always to have that edge. We don't fire warning shots. Competition just dropped. We locked and loaded before lock. Whatever the time, yeah. Do you even correlate?
Being the best requires a willingness to outwork your competition. There's always someone smarter, faster, sharper, more naturally gifted to come around.
All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to another edition of the DFS Army Killshot MMA podcast, a very special edition. Of course, we're breaking down UFC 262, Olivera v. Chandler. Little UFC pay-per-view action this week, but it's a special edition because we welcome, officially this time, our newest staffer on the DFS Army MMA team, Dan Levy, from Best Fight Picks, sports betting GOAT extraordinaire. What's up, Dan?
What's up, man? It's great to be here with both of y'all. I appreciate you really going out of your way to make this happen. You know, a lot of people had that opportunity, but you truly wanted it and you made it happen. And now you got me, buddy. So let's do this.
Hell yeah, I recognize the best. A big part of what we did with DFS Army, the reason why DFS Army continues to lead the pack in all sports across the DFS industry is because one of the key things I emphasize here is we want the best guys. That's why BigMarley, sports betting GOAT, Dan Levy, sports betting GOAT combined. Bah, you got a lot of fucking GOAT action over here to break down some UFC. And for those of you watching this stream and or watching after the fact, we normally have this show behind our DFS Army paywall, but we decided to make it public. We're excited to have Dan on the show and give you a little bit of an idea of what we do over at DFS Army. So if you want to get signed up, you'll not only get these breakdowns, but you'll get cheat sheets from BigMarley, myself, and Dan breaking down all the fights. We've got ownership projections. We've got player projections. We've got rankings, our optimizer, everything you need to smash, not just UFC, but across all daily fantasy sports. Dan, did you know that we were just ranked #1 overall for NBA accuracy on the season?
You know, I'm not surprised, man. I mean, I think that the numbers speak for themselves. I mean, when you got people out here winning the kind of prizes that they are using the DFS Army, it's a no-brainer that not just here in MMA, but across all sports. I mean, this is the place to go. So y'all better sign up today.
I love it. I love it. And as you know, I loves me some MMA. And we have an awesome card this week. So I want to just get right into this one. Let's put the odds up on the screen here. And before we really get into, I want to get an overall opinion from you guys, because this is really unusual. So when you take a look at the fights this week, as you can see, we've got about 9 fights, almost 10 that are pick'ems. I've never seen anything like it. There's no clear-cut winners here. And even the clear-cut winner seemed a little sketchy to me. I mean, you know, Gina Mazzani. What? That's your biggest favorite on the card. So it makes for a really weird event. Marley, have you ever seen anything like this before? Is this unusual? I mean, I don't even know where to begin.
Yeah, I feel like we've seen it before, but it's been a long time. And this is definitely one of the least sexy 9K ranges that I've seen. Really everybody priced above Charles Olivera, not too in love with this week. So roster construction will be interesting. And I haven't even started building lineups, so I'm not exactly sure how I will attack it, but I'm guessing it's a good week to leave a lot of money on the table, maybe mess around in that mid-range quite a bit. But I'm looking forward to it. We got 200K up top, so hopefully somebody gets that solo.
It's a big one, and actually I'd be hard-pressed not to mention that last week, I took a little share of the first-place prize on the big tournament on Draftkings, along with a bunch of other DFS Army subscribers. And Dan, I want to maybe attribute that a little bit to, you coming on the show with us last week, giving us some really good ideas on which way to go with some of these fights. So hopefully we're going to keep that going here.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be great. It's always good. If you can't win, at least someone or someone that's part of the team wins. We all get a piece of the prize. So let's do it.
Or we all win together, man. That's what
That's
we
right.
do around here. I love it. So let's get started. First fight of the night. And this is one of the biggest favorites on the card. We got Christos Giagos taking on Sean Soriano. And Giagos coming in as one of the biggest favorites on the card, minus 210, with Sean Soriano coming back at plus 175. With a very high minus 175, fight goes to decision prop. Now, Dan, I'll start with you here, but the last time we saw Sean Soriano, he had a real problem with grappling. Good striker, couldn't really deal with grapplers, and it kind of made his first stint in the UFC not really work out. So has that improved? What's he been up to?
Yeah, that's the big question. He was always that guy that would whoop your ass, and then he'd gas out, and then he'd get choked out. So it's about how's he, patched up the cardio and the defense on the mat, because his kickboxing is pretty damn good. And it was good back when he was in the UFC on his first stint. It's gotten even better now. So I know he left the UFC and he had a couple more of those questionable, fights outside the first round. So now it's about, has he patched it up? Because it's been a couple of years since that's happened to him. Is it a matter of he's just been fighting the right opponents, or is it, has he really turned the corner? Because he's training with all the right people. I mean, he's in there with Gilbert Durino. He's in there with Mike Chandler, Vicente Luque. So there's no excuse for him not to get better. And if he has gotten better, then I think he's a live underdog here, because Christos Giagos is pretty much a finished product now. He's a good athlete, and he can beat guys by being more physical than them. But that's about the extent of it. If your wrestling ain't quite on point, he'll go out there and he'll take you down. He's just kind of an average fighter that's a good athlete. That's how I kind of consider Giagos. So this to me really comes down to what kind of improvements has Soriano made? Because if Soriano has just improved his takedown defense this much and his cardio this much, I actually think he can come out here and light up a guy like Christos Giagos. So it really comes down to what happens down the stretch. I'd actually be more inclined to take the dog in this spot in hopes that he's patched up that part of his game, but it'd be more of a guess and more of a play on the line than it would be me talking with confidence, because I don't know that. I'm hoping that's happened based off who he's been training with, based on the time that surpassed, but we need more evidence of what happens past the first round. But I know the kid can kickbox, that's for sure.
There we go. I mean, his last fight against Noad Lahat, I'm seeing here. I mean, Noad is definitely a grappler first, and it looks like Sean came out with that win. So, he can beat a grappler. We'll see if he could beat a UFC.
That's a featherweight, though. We got to see how he does against a big lightweight. Noad's a kind of a featherweight, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I mean, and probably not a UFC level featherweight at that. So, BigMarley, what's your take on this fight? Soriano taking on Giagos. Giagos really a takedowns guy historically. Averaging over 3 takedowns on average in the UFC so far. And that's what I've seen him as in the past. Like, he comes in and he's kind of like a crazy grappler. He also gasses a little bit towards the end of the fight.
Yeah, I agree with Dan here. I think Soriano's live. I think he's the quicker of the two. I think it would help him on the feet more, though. Yeah, make this a kickboxing fight, kind of slow Giagos down. I just don't know that he could do that at 155 on short notice. And I just wasn't really impressed with what I saw. I think Giagos is going to be the bigger guy, the more aggressive fighter in there. And he's landed 18 takedowns in his last 4 fights. We love to see that on Draftkings. I could see this being one where he lands 4 or 5 takedowns, controls the fight for 7.5 minutes, and just takes it on the scorecards. I also think he's got power. Maybe he can get a knockout. They both make mistakes on the ground. Either one could get a submission, but I don't want to, bank on one of them getting a submission in this fight. So this will just be a fight that I target with my, MME lineups. In my 150, I'll kind of let the domination station optimizer let it do its thing. And then with my hand builds, it's going to be Giagos or pass for me. There's a number of underdogs I like on this card, so I don't really want to invest in Soriano with my, 10 or less hand build lineups. So Giagos is a guy I think can get 90 plus. In all 3 of those wins he had where he landed 5 or 6 takedowns, he scored 93, 92, 96. I'll take that at this $9,100 salary when I don't really love that range in general. So give me Giagos by decision.
Yeah, one of the things that makes it a little easier, I would say, if you want to roster Giagos is, again, salaries basically are irrelevant on this card. You'll be able to roster whoever the hell you want. For the most part, in every lineup just because of the way that the lines broke down and how close every fight is. As long as you throw Andrea Lee in any lineup and all of a sudden you can afford whatever the hell you want. And she's plus 105. We're not talking about some massive long shot underdog over here. So you could play whatever you want. And I totally agree on both sides. I didn't know that this was a weight class difference situation going on, but I like Giagos when he fights because he's very active and he gets a lot of takedowns. I like that on DraftKings. Sean Soriano's showing, though, he's a guy who throws fists, and he is showing some history of getting wins against grapplers now. So maybe he's improved that takedown defense a little bit since he was in the UFC. We're going to find out tomorrow night, but this one should be really interesting. All right, let's move on to the second fight of the night. Ooh, oh boy. Gina Mazzani taking on Priscilla Cachoeira. And guys, this feels like the same fight that we just broke down, but with ladies. Now, and here's what I mean by this. Basically, you got Gina Mazzani, who she's a takedown girl. She wants to grind you and take you down. She doesn't like getting hit. If she gets hit, it's not going to go well. And you got Priscilla Cachoeira, who is the opposite. She's had a weakness to being taken down. She can be grinded, similar to Sean Soriano's career in the UFC when he was in it. So the question, but probably if it stayed striking, I think Cachoeira, aka Catch a Beating, credit to Sun Tzu or whoever made that up, would beat the crap out of her. Like, I don't think Mazzani likes to be hit. She reminds me of Gillian Robinson a little bit. So I'll throw it over to you, Big Marley, Cachoeira, Mazzani, another Mazzani coming in as the biggest favorite on the card. What do you say?
Yeah, it's hard to want to trust Mazzani at over 2-1 odds. She's not special anywhere, but she does have an advantage in this fight through her wrestling. Cachoeira can be taken down and she can be on her back for periods of time. In Mazzani's 2 UFC wins, she had 7 and 5 takedowns, controlled the fight on the ground for about 8 minutes apiece. That's the path for her here. I don't know that she gets blown out of the water on the feet, but I would take Cachoeira in a striking match. And I also think Cachoeira's live for a knockout in this fight, or a TKO anyways. Maybe she gets her up against the fence and she just starts throwing bombs and the ref steps in. And as the cheapest fighter in the card, if that happens, you're going to need her. So I'm a little bit interested in Cachoeira for that reason. But Mazzani's going to be my pick here just by a wrestling decision. I think she can get at least 2 rounds that way, if not all 3. And maybe she can score well. She scored over 100 points in both of those wins she had so far. I think 118 and like 136. Very impressive scores. I don't put past a ceiling like that in this fight. So I do want some Mazzani, but again, I'm kind of going to let the domination station control how much I get of this upper tier, and I'm going to be focusing more on the mid-range myself this week, especially with my hand build. So I'm not going to be super high on Mazzani, but I think she's in play in all formats.
Yeah, I agree. Dan, Mazzani averaging 4.41 takedowns per 15. Cachoeira was taken down by Molly Meatball. The Meatball took her down. So my guess is that Mazzani's going to be able to secure a takedown, even though these stats say she's got a 70% takedown defense. Maybe Shayna Dobson tried to take her down a few times that fight and contributed to that percentage. I don't know, but Meatball took her down. Mazzani, her path to victory here, it's got to be takedowns, no? And that would be attractive on DraftKings.
I mean, it's got to be. And if she comes out here with that game plan, I think she'll have success. It's just that, Meatball is actually way tougher than Gina Mazzani. I've never seen Meatball quit in a fight before. She might get outclassed because she's not the best athlete around. But, when she got submitted by Juliana Robertson, she went to sleep. Whereas I've seen 3 occasions where Gina has straight up said no mas. And I'm referring to the Sarah McMahon fight. I'm referring to the Macy Chauzon fight. I'm referring to the Julia Avila fight. Like, when you see fights like that, and the kind of power Priscilla brings to the table, that at the very low level that these ladies are at, power can override technique. And it's not like, Mazzani's some, shot straight down the pipe type striker either. So I can totally see Priscilla Cachoeira coming out there with that kind of Jessica Andrade style, swarming her with big loopy punches and getting her out of there. But if you're taking Gina, you obviously want her to mix in takedowns. We know takedowns score a lot. and to get a lot of top control. I mean, we saw Valentina Shevchenko do it, but this ain't even on the same stratosphere as Valentina Shevchenko here with Gina. So I personally think at the current price, it's a dog or pass situation. But I also acknowledge the fact that I'd be banking on a knockout. I'd be banking on her going out there and bullying Gina Mazzani. I don't see Priscilla coming out and getting takedowns. I think it might be, KO or bust type situation. And on the flip side, Mazzani does have upside with the takedown. So let's see which situation occurs.
I mean, Cachoeira by KO TKO at plus 645. You can get pretty good numbers for that if you want to take that shot. Now, I have a question for you, Dan, and this I'm seeing something here in the stats, and I'm trying to bring this back around here. So this looks backwards to me. Priscilla Cachoeira is listed at 135, and Gina Mazzani is listed at 125 here.
Right.
And I'm feeling like this is backwards. Shayna Dobson, Valentina Shevchenko, these are all 125 pounders. So has Priscilla been fighting at 135? And wasn't Gina fighting at 135 and moving down to 125? So
yeah, exactly. So
is this backwards? What the fuck is going on here?
No, they both fought at bantamweight. Now they're meeting at flyweight. I know Gina's last fight was at flyweight. Aside from that, all her fights have been at bantamweight. And I believe a similar thing for Priscilla, but they're meeting at 25s in this fight.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, I'm just trying to get this straight here because I thought Gina was fighting at, Macy Chasson is definitely not 125. And Lena Landsberg, these are 135, 145. So it seems like Gina is moving, like Priscilla will be a smaller fighter than what Gina had been fighting recently.
Yeah, I mean, bigger than Ostovich, but aside from that, correct.
Yeah, Ostovich. Let's not.
That's her last UFC win, so
let's not dignify Ostovich with calling her a UFC fighter. I think that's a bit much. Hot chick, Instagram, all good. All right, let's move on. Next fight on the card, we've got Kevin Aguilar taking on Tucker Lutz. This one's another one of these pick'em fights, guys, with Lutz coming in at minus 120, Aguilar plus 100, and the fight goes to decision prop sitting at minus 195. And Dan, I'm actually going to throw a second question for you here before we even get into this breakdown. We are back to having a live audience. We are back to having fans in the stands. The last time we saw a UFC event with fans, something was electric about that night. People were getting knocked out all over the place. The fighters were hyped. Do you think that having the fans there has any sort of an effect at all on these outcomes? Or is it just that was that just random sort of variance that one card with the crowd? It was such an awesome card and so many finishes a couple of weeks back. Do you think we'll see a bit more of the same, or was that just variance? Like, do you factor that at all?
I don't factor it because, I mean, it's, beyond my control, and there's already so many factors going in that the crowd's the last thing on my mind. But of course, it gives you life. It gives you more energy. But I think something else we need to talk about more importantly than the crowd is the notorious Texas judging. Because, man, those Texas judges are, if you thought the Vegas judges were bad, wait till you see the Texas judges. Go watch a fight between Tim Boesch and CB Dalloway where the famous 30-26 Boesch scorecard was read. Also watch Alex Hernandez versus Trinaldo. They're known for some of the worst decisions we've ever seen in all our years watching the sport. And then for this fight specifically with Kevin Aguilar and Tucker Lutz, that last fight with Kevin Aguilar, it looked like Kevin Aguilar was due in 3 months. He looked 6 months pregnant. It was, the quarantine got to him. So now I'm just wondering, are we still dealing with quarantine Kevin Aguilar, or are we going to deal with that guy who came into the UFC with a 16-1 record that was considered a prospect that was in a fight with Dan Ige where Kevin Aguilar was actually favored minus 160, Because if we're dealing with, if he can just show me this much hunger, I think that he's going to beat Tucker Lutz. It's just that if we're dealing with quarantine Kevin and he doesn't give a fuck about this shit anymore and he hasn't been training anymore, well, then I definitely see Tucker Lutz outworking him. And I think that's why it's appropriately set at a pick'em, because it's really tough to know without any inside info what version of these guys we're getting. And, I often don't like talking about, which version shows up, because I think that discredits the opponent. But I think it's very suitable to talk in those terms for this fight, man, because Kevin Aguilar, he needs to be on his game for it to work in the UFC, because he already takes a lot of punches as it is when he's his best version. So you're telling me the fat version's coming out here and he's going to be taking punches? I don't like that at all. If he's in shape, I think he can win this fight. But if he's not, then I can see a younger, hungrier guy coming out here and outworking him. So that's why it's a pick 'em, and I agree with it being a pick 'em. Look, I'm going to hope we get the Kevin Aguilar that got signed to the UFC, that was on that big win streak, that was making all this noise, that was, you know, a favorite to Dan Ige. You give me that guy, I think he beats Tucker Lutz. But you give me that fat bum that fought Charles Rosa, and I got Tucker Lutz. So it just really depends. That's why I know a lot of people don't care about weigh-ins. I care about weigh-ins. I want to see what these guys look like on the scales, and if Kevin Aguilar is in shape, I'll take him to win this fight.
There we go. Big Marley. What kind of read do you have on this fight? Kevin Aguilar, like Dan said, did not look very good the last time we saw him. Tucker Lutz making his UFC debut.
Yeah, this is one where I want to see the weigh-ins as well. This is at 145 pounds though, so I would guess he's going to come in in better shape than he did that last fight. I mean, he can't really come in worse shape, but he definitely had 10 pounds right there to drop. Yeah, if he looks good, he's got a six-pack in there. Maybe I'll change my opinion on this, but right now I'm going to go with Lutz. More so for his wrestling. I think this is a close fight on the feet. I do like Aguilar's movement and KO power a little bit more. He probably wins just a pure striking match, but I think it's close. And Lutz can get up there in volume, and he's a wrestler that I think just likes his striking a little bit too much lately. And maybe he does turn this into a striking match. And I wouldn't love that, but they are a mid-range price. We don't need 100 plus from these guys to get there. But I think they both have the potential with a knockout. And then Lutz, even in the decision, I think he can get near 100 if he's able to work his wrestling game here. Aguilar has great takedown defense, but I think Lutz can get some takedowns if that's what he's looking to do. And I think he's good enough at keeping top control where he will win rounds, rack up those little punches that now count on Draftkings, and put up a decent score. So I like Lutz because I think he has a better chance at putting up, 10x plus whatever happens in a win, where I think Aguilar really needs a knockout or just a pure 15-minute striking battle just to put up a decent score. And I don't want to invest much in that happening, so give me some Lutz by decision.
There we go. I'm just gonna go back to my breakdown, which didn't work the last time Kevin Aguilar fought, which was, he's fighting Rosa. He's definitely going to be the better striker, and he's got 87% takedown defense. Going to keep it striking. That leads to win for Aguilar. Of course, I bet that. And then the aforementioned fat Aguilar showed up and ruined my plans by being the worse striker than Rosa, which was like, hey, what the hell is this? I thought I broke it down right. Rosa can't take him down, but now he's piecing him up on the feet. So sometimes the best laid plans, like I kind of see this one really similar. I don't really think Lutz is going to have a lot of success taking this guy down or wrestling him because he's really good at not getting taken down. But Lutz could just outstrike him too. So that's the problem. That's what makes it tough. Lutz might have a path to the win here, especially if he looks like he did the last time we saw him of a striking-based victory, and he doesn't need the takedown. So that adds a little bit of risk. Overall, though, my main point to this fight is looks gross for DraftKings. Outside of a finish, I do not see Aguilar has not been a good scorer anyway. So the winner of this fight would need to get a knockout, a finish to have any sort of shot of being in the nuts. Again, we got the crowd going, the noise seemed to lead to more finishes the last time. I'm going to lean towards even some of these plus odds fights ending inside the distance. I would probably blindly bet like all of these fights to end inside the distance just because of the phenomenon that we've seen. And, hopefully a lot of them are plus money for that. But overall, no finish, no nuts on this one. So for that reason, for me, this is mostly a fight I'm looking to fade. I'll get a couple shares based on the implied probabilities of an inside the distance finish. So, here we go. Aguilar is plus 420. Lutz is plus 320. That means, I'm in that 15, 17% range on these guys of exposure. Somebody gets a lucky finish. They're big dudes throwing fists at each other. Somebody can get knocked out. If it happens, it's going to be the nuts. We see it every week. So I just want exposure for that eventuality and nothing else. All right. Next up. Close that. Next up, we've got Jordan, the Beverly Hills Ninja Wright, taking on Jamie Pickett. Another pick'em. They're coming hard. Pick'em fights over and over. Minus 105 for Pickett, minus 115 for Jordan Wright. No underdog on this one. Last time we saw Jordan Wright, he was getting knocked actually, was he? No.
Yep, he was.
He was getting knocked the fuck out, right?
Yep.
Hang on. Where's my boy Jordan Wright? Beverly Hills Ninja, badass chick from the Moulin Rouge. Yeah, Joaquin Buckley knocked him out. Before that, he got the finish against Fat Ike Villanueva. Jamie Pickett, I was just watching tape on this guy. I'm like, why do I recognize Jamie Pickett? I don't watch these random things, but he had fought Tafan and Chukawu, who fought last week, so we got to watch a little bit of tape on him as well. And now they're facing off against one another. Jordan Wright, susceptible to being knocked out. Seen it a couple times. Fluffy Hernandez knocked him out as well, if I remember correctly. And Jamie Pickett, just more of a journeyman. Interesting that he's in the UFC at all. So I'll start with you on this one, Big Marley. What's your breakdown on this fight? Jordan Wright, can Pickett test his chin here? Because Jordan Wright, besides for the fact that he gets knocked out pretty easily, it seems like, has some pretty decent looking skills.
I don't know. I think it's decent. I mean, easy to have decent looking skills when you're fighting 0-0, 0-0, 0-5, 0-0, 0-21, 0-10, 0-0, 1-2. I don't think anyone's had an easier road.
Clearly, good management as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
But the easiest road to, an 8-0 record as I've ever seen. And then he goes 9-0 against Anthony Hernandez, but he got flatlined in that fight. That was his first real step up. Then he gets Ike Villanueva in his UFC debut. Ike Villanueva's done. He's nobody at this point. So I'm not sold at all in Jordan Wright's skills. But at the same time, Jamie Pickett's not UFC level either. So this is just a super low level fight, in my opinion. And the scarier guy, I think, is Jamie Pickett. Some of these submissions that Jordan Wright are getting against those 0-0 guys, you're not getting that stuff in the UFC, not even against a low-level guy in Jamie Pickett. I do think the one thing Wright has in this fight is maybe the higher volume and the better kicks. Maybe he can get a knockout with one of those kicks. But it's kicks versus punches in this one for me, and I think Pickett's punches are going to be more devastating than Wright's kicks. And if he could just push the pace, give the fight to Wright, then I think Pickett should be the favorite in this one. So I got Pickett by knockout. And since they're both 8.1K, I really don't want to throw too much money in the pot in this one. I'm just going to take a stand personally and go Pickett or pass.
Dan, fight doesn't go to decision minus 225 here.
I'm with Marley on this one, man. I mean, I think the Beverly Hills Ninja has zero business in the UFC. If you need any proof of that, go watch the Anthony Hernandez fight. I mean, you can look on paper and it says he beat Ike Villanueva, but I mean, that was a cut stoppage. It's not like he actually truly beat him. I understand he gets the points and all that, but like Brett Apley says, don't be so results oriented and actually look at what happened. And what actually happened was, had that fight continued, I think Ike would have took over. So, yeah, and I've also not been that impressed with Jamie Pickett, but I think he's got enough to come out here and beat this guy. I ain't picking the Beverly Hills Ninja to win a single UFC fight. I don't think he belongs. I'm not even convinced he wins the NFC title down here in Atlanta. And to take it a step further about this good management talk, it's one thing to have a good manager pad up your record, but once it's time to step up, you better be ready to step up. And this kid ain't ready to step up. So I got Jamie Pickett to get this done.
Man, I got to tell you, after I watched the Fluffy fight and the way he folded off of not much, where it didn't look, Fluffy's not some knockout guy. He's a submission specialist, and he folded this guy. I said to myself, first of all, I never thought he'd be in the UFC, but then I'm like, all right, this is the easiest fate ever. And of course, they gave him the fight against Ike, and you look at that fight and you go, wait a minute, this is Ike, the other guy that I would never, ever take in a fight. And they're facing off against one another. It was crazy. Actually, I loaded up on Wright that time because I thought Ike was a worse fighter. And the biggest question is exactly what you said. I mean, it's not if Wright isn't good. He does not appear to be a very good fighter, or he doesn't have the durability, I think, that you need to have, or the toughness to be in the UFC. But I don't know anything about Jamie Pickett and to know if he's that guy either. So I agree with you guys, though. Between these two, Wright definitely looks like he actually reminds me of that guy Bular we saw a couple of weeks ago, where I'm like, I don't really understand why you're here. And that I'm getting that same tingles from Wright. So I don't have much to add here. I'm definitely with you guys. I think Jamie Pickett is the play, even though he's pretty sketchy as well. He's just less sketchy than Jordan Wright.
Let's say this, though. I mean, he's so much more durable than Jordan Wright. It's not even funny. I mean, we're talking about a guy in Jamie Pickett who went the distance with Puna Haley Soriano, a kid that I call the Hawaiian Vitor. He went the distance with Tafan Chukwi, who is from Cameroon, and you already know about that African power. So it's just a different level of durability. If you can take Puna shots for 3 rounds, I'm so confident you can take this kid's shot. So yeah, I got Jamie Pickett here, man. And
to be clear, on the DraftKings perspective, I love this one for DraftKings because, very high inside the distance props, super mid-level salary. And while I don't think there's going to be a lot of DraftKings grappling points or control time being racked up here, you could be looking at easily a first-round finish for Pickett in this one, which will score massive. So good fight to target on DraftKings. All right. This next fight is really interesting. And again, especially when we're talking about it from a DraftKings perspective, but just overall. So we've got Antonina Shevchenko minus 125 taking on Andrea KGB Lee plus 105. Now, here's what makes it interesting. Number one, Antonina Shevchenko is like the most expensive fighter on the card at 9,200 salary. Hasn't done very much to justify. I mean, she had a nice score against Lipsky in that fight, in fairness to Antonina. But she's the most expensive fighter on the card. It's basically a pick'em against Andrea Lee. But if you take Andrea Lee on, again, DraftKings 7,100, you can afford whatever lineup you want. So I don't understand why this is salaried the way it is. Oh, all right, so here we go. This is why. Because Antonina opened minus 195, and it looks like all the monies have come in on Lee properly because this fight is super close. So I'll go to you first this time, Dan. Andrea Lee came into the UFC with a lot of hype behind her. KGB, a pretty badass nickname, to be honest. Sometimes a nickname is really important. She wears a cowboy hat, looks like a badass chick. Hasn't had the best run so far. What do you think here in this spot? It's a really close fight on paper. Does Lee have what it takes to maybe grapple with Shevchenko and take her down and kind of abuse her in an area where she's less good?
Well, I feel like that area is where everybody beats Andrea Lee as well. So I kind of view this as striker versus striker, and I think Shevchenko is the better striker. And when you just described Lee, you said she came into the UFC with a lot of hype. You said she's got a cool nickname, and you said she wears a cowboy hat. Those 3 factors don't tell me shit about what kind of fighter she is. But to your point, the reason you mentioned that is because she's overrated, man. I mean, this is someone who's consistently underperformed and let everyone down. And for whatever reason, people are in love with her. Is it because of the cowboy hat? Is it because she came into the UFC, with a lot of hype? Because, I know we give Antonina shit for losing to Roxanne. Well, here's Andrea Lee that lost to Roxanne not once, but twice. So, I think they're on a similar boat as far as that is concerned. But I do respect the fact that, Shevchenko, she gets dominated by Caitlin Chukagian in a way where a lot of us were like, man, she's never going to come back the same. And then her very next fight, she's the one taking her opponent down and dominating her on the ground. So that to me was a sign of like, hey, someone that learned from their mistakes, someone that, realized, hey, I got a weakness here. Now it's time to nip that problem in the butt. Whereas Andrea Lee's crying robbery every fight. Plus her piece of shit husband left her. And I say piece of shit. I mean, the guy's got a Nazi thing tattooed on him. So fuck that guy. But the reality is that she hasn't been the same since he left the picture. And now I view this as kickboxer versus kickboxer. And like I said, I think Antonina's the better kickboxer. So I got to go with Antonina here via unanimous decision.
There we go. Maybe not worth paying up for on DraftKings, however, but yeah, good breakdown there. Big Marley, what do you say on this one? You think that this one stays on the feet like Dan says, and that Antonina can show a little bit more skill on the feet, as we probably think she has, and she does have an extensive kickboxing background?
I don't know. I think we see more more on the ground, really. And it could be whoever gets the fight to the ground first wins that way, because neither one of them are very good off their back. But I feel a lot better that Lee can get up from a Shevchenko takedown. And Shevchenko made Chukagian look like Khabib. I mean, 3 takedowns and this fight could be over just by keeping top control, throwing down some punches, and getting a clear unanimous decision. I think on the feet it's somewhat close. It would be Lee's aggressiveness and just pushing forward with her punches against the kickboxing from Shevchenko. I do think Shevchenko is the better overall striker. So if this is a 15-minute striking match, then Shevchenko probably gets it done. She's not going to pay off that $9,200 salary, though, unless she's getting a knockout or just extreme volume. She's going to need some takedowns. She's going to need a really fun fight to pay that off. So I'm not interested in Shevchenko at all here. I think Lee is almost a lock in cash games. With that line value that we're getting, she's almost an even.
I don't even know if you need it. I don't know if you need it. I think you could just take whoever you think wins fights. I don't even think the value is crazy on every card. We would.
Yeah, but Lee should get 15 minutes, and I like her to win. So I just think she's the best cheap cash game play on the card, and I think she can get 2 takedowns, one in 2 of the rounds, and win the fight that way. So give me Lee just by being the better all-around fighter. Shevchenko's 36 years old now. She's never going to be her sister, and I think just that last name, Shevchenko, is kind of what's putting her as the favorite here. I would have flipped that line, so give me Andrea Lee.
Yeah, super close fight. I don't have interest in Antonina either on DraftKings. Too expensive. The fight goes to decision. -370 is one of the worst on the card in terms of hopes for an early finish here. So I do think it's going to be 3 rounds of striking, and both of these girls, as you guys said, have weakness in the grappling department. We'll see which one can get a takedown. One thing, I would note in the stats, and I'm not sure, it's not super important, but, Lee is definitely a little bit more likely to go for a takedown, or has been. But, Antonina could be adding that to her game. Hard to really judge it. But, it's dog or pass for me on this one, both DraftKings wise and just in general on this fight. I wouldn't want to lay money on Antonina because that weakness off her back is frightening. And Andrea Lee, again, hype machine, don't really buy into that she's good, but she definitely came in, she's not being treated with the hype anymore. At this point, that line has said, all right, enough is enough, because she was favored in pretty much all of those early fights, significantly that she got her ass beat in. Dog or pass for me. All right. Next up, Mike Grundy takes on Lando Vanada. Grundy, slight favorite, -125. Comeback on Vanada, +105. Fight goes to decision, -160. Now, Big Marl, Lando Vanada, man, another guy, kind of like a disappointing character in the UFC. Win one, lose one. And here we got Mike Grundy. Grundy's come into the UFC. He's wrestle heavy. Good stuff for DraftKings. Good style. Is Grundy going to get it done here against Lando? Is that his nickname? Groovy? Lando Groovy Vanada? Is that it?
I think so. It used to be, at least.
Groovy. There he is. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I think he will because of his wrestling. I think the biggest edge in this fight is Grundy's wrestling. He's very dominant with it. And in the first round, especially, I think it'll really work in this fight. And that's good for him because Vanada's best in the first round as well. He's more of a start heavy, finish slower, and that's kind of how Grundy is. But if he's going to wrestle Vanada in that first round and really suck the energy out of him, then I don't know that Vanada is going to be stuffing takedowns in rounds 2 and round 3, even if Grundy's tiring out himself. So I would rather have the wrestling edge in this fight. But Vanada's the better striker, so if he can stuff takedowns, I like him to win on the feet. Maybe he can get a knockout as well. But Grundy had 6 takedowns against Evloev, and Evloev's the real deal. And he almost finished him in that first round, too, with that Darce choke. I think he would have finished Vanada with that same choke. So give me Grundy. I think he has a path to a high score. He doesn't even need a finish here. And he can put up 100+. Whereas Vanada is going to have to keep this fight on the feet the whole time or get a knockout for him to put up a high score. So it's going to be more so Grundy for me. I'm not going to X Vanada out of my player pool, but I don't see him making my hand builds. That would be a Grundy or pass for me.
There we go. How about you, Dan? How do you see this fight going?
I mean, it just depends how Lando looks now that he's dropping a weight class. Because I guess the big issue for him was, firstly, he was a small lightweight, and then there were cardio concerns as well. So for him to drop to 45, that means that, you know, he's been running every day, he's been dieting properly. So I actually expect him to be in the best shape he's ever been in, probably in his entire career. So then that leads me to question what happens down the stretch. Because one thing about Grundy, he doesn't have the best volume in the world, man. I mean, he scored 6 takedowns that last fight, which is amazing on paper, but then you see he only scored 44 points. So, you know, it's one of those things where Lando is actually a former D1 wrestler. Even though he dropped out, he still made it to the D1 program. So I'm curious if Lando can possibly keep the standing, because if he can, Grundy doesn't really have that much volume, and he's not too threatening. He does have power. He can crack, don't get me wrong, but as far as accumulation, it's not really there. So yeah, you know, those are my big questions. How's Lando going to look in this new weight class? You know, I do have to obviously lean towards Grundy just because he's been more proven at featherweight, and Lando's been super inconsistent. And also, there's an interesting stat that if for every fight that Lando's been taken down at least one time, he hasn't won, period. So who knows if that trend's going to continue here, but you know, the numbers suggest that if Grundy scores at least one takedown, Lando ain't winning this fight. So I'm going to go with Grundy. It'll be a decision.
Let me tell you something. Grundy is definitely scoring a takedown in this fight. I mean, you know, for that not to happen, Grundy would need to get knocked out. Like, he is very relentless. He goes in there knowing what he's there to do. Like, one thing I like about Grundy is he knows what I'm here for. I'm here to take you down and submit you. As a matter of fact, Dan, what I was going to throw back at you was, what the hell, like, when you talk about these crazy ass inexperienced judges that you're going to get in Texas, will they appreciate the takedowns?
Good question.
Or are they going to be like, hey, he got the takedowns, but 2 strikes, he's barely throwing any strikes, he's not doing any damage. That's what I'm worried about with Grundy, is he doesn't remember to throw strikes when he's getting these takedowns.
Exactly. You know, and that's another thing. It's like gauging how close these fights are truly going to play out is a big deal, more important than picking the winner, because you can have someone clearly win the fight and then the judges score a 30-27 for the other guy. So, you know, like last week, for example, the Klein fight. Now, Trezano did good, don't get me wrong, but when I heard the 30-27, I was like, oh, Klein got it. And then they raised Trezano's arm. So it's one of those things where you never know anymore. And now we're back in Texas. So all I got to say is, like, if this fight is close, you know, don't sit here and cry robbery if you're on the wrong side. That's why you truly got to pick your spots. And now more than ever, I need guys to dominate. Like, it used to be a thing where, you know, let's win by any means necessary, which I mean, I still would love to win by any means necessary, but now it's like, no, let's fucking dominate. Let's leave no doubt, because these judges will take wins away from you.
Absolutely. Hard to know. And again, it's so unpredictable, because some judges will come in and overly count the grappling and say, oh, well, he was controlling. And then other ones will just completely ignore it and only count the striking when somebody was dominating with their grappling. So we've seen both situations play out. Like, I don't know how the bad judge, what he's seeing, like which side of it is more enticing to them. But, you know, you can imagine like a Merab Dawashvili losing a fight after he got 13 takedowns because, you know, he didn't throw back in the day. I don't even know if that ever happened.
Exactly. Like, you remember Merab versus Frankie Saenz? I mean, when I was watching that, like, as soon as it cut to commercial break, I walked out the room like knowing I cashed Merab. And then I walked back in and they're interviewing Frankie. I was like, wait, like they interviewed the loser? And then it said winner by split decision. I was like, wait, what? So you just never know, man. Like I said, you can set takedown records and the judges will still take it away from you. You can drop a guy and they'll still take it away from you. So that's one thing that's been super frustrating lately. So it's about now, I don't even want to like get involved in these close fights unless there's a huge edge on the dog. Like I want my guys to dominate now.
I wish that I could get all my guys to dominate. Remember TJ Brown 2 weeks ago? That was crazy.
I thought Kamaka won that fight personally.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you know, so sometimes they go in your favor as well, which is nice. But, you know, I think that is in play here. I think you're going to see Grundy get a lot of takedowns. He's going to be doing that, and he's not going to be throwing strikes. And when you have money on him, you're going to be like, or he's in your lineup, you're not going to know. They're going to judges, and then they're going to say 29, 28, 30, 27, and you're gonna be like, oh, and then it's not you. or it is. You're not going to know. It's going to be scary. You're going to be sweating on this one way or the other. As far as the fight goes, from a DraftKings point of view, I'm not in love with it. Grundy, even with his wrestling, he's not a get 12 takedowns guy most of the time, but Grundy is the side I want to be on. So because of the wrestling, because he's going for the takedowns, and because of the control time, which I think will favor him massively, he's the side I want to be on for DraftKings. But like with most of these fights, I'm predicting wins. Guys, when you go through my sheet this week, pay more attention to the fight itself and what predicting these winners. It's very, very tough. But I'm going with Grundy in this one. All right. Next up. Oh, how the mighty hath fallen is what I'm going to say for this one, as Jacare Souza. At one time, a guy who was one of the best fighters in the world, certainly in the UFC, certainly in the division. Now, pick'em odds with Andre Muniz, a guy who, quite frankly, I've never heard of. So, oh, how the mighty hath fallen. Like, that is where we're at. Jacare minus 125. Muniz is coming back at plus 105. And the fight goes to decision. Prop is a surprisingly low, in my opinion, minus 110. And I'll start with you this one, Marley. So I'm going to narrative this one for you. We've seen this a lot. Last week we talked about Cowboy Cerrone, way better skill wise than Alex Morono, but he's old and he has no chin. So how the hell do you judge this? And of course, in hindsight, the shoulder knockout from Conor McGregor should have been playing in our heads over and over and over again. Like, this guy got knocked out from this, this that knocked him out. So now the only thing I can see when I think of Jacare is a guy who got knocked out from this. Okay, this is my hammer fist from bottom position. I practiced that before with the trainer so that I could do that with proper technique. He got knocked out from this. So I don't know. How do you trust Jacare in there with anybody? This guy isn't even a striker. He's a submission guy. He's going up against a better submission guy. I don't know. It seems obvious. Bet on Jacare, but now I don't want to. I don't know what to do. Marley, what should I do?
Yeah, I don't really want to trust Jacare at 41 years old with too much of my money. The chin's definitely an issue. I have had problems identifying when these people are just completely donezo, like Cowboy last week. Maybe that's the case here. Maybe Jacare will just never win another fight. But the UFC is doing a decent job getting him a winnable fight here against Muniz, because these guys are both really good grapplers. I would love to see just a BJJ match with these two on Saturday night, but I think Souza would be the better wrestler, and I don't see either one of these guys really getting submitted. So I think it would be Souza hanging out in top control, landing a punch here and there, or this is going to be just a lower paced striking match. It's kind of how I see it, with Jacare being the better striker of the two, the more powerful kicks, but less durable. Neither one are durable, but I would say Jacare is less durable at this point. And maybe it just takes one shot for Muniz to put him away. I'm not sure, but yeah, I think the finish, either way, a finish is really what we're hoping for to get a high score here. And I don't want to bank on that happening. So I'll probably avoid this fight completely with my hand build lineups, and then I'll limit it with the optimizer. I'll just make sure it's not in too many of my lineups, but I'm more so interested on the Muniz side because he's an underdog. If he gets a knockout, it's going to be much more likely that he's on the optimal lineup than it will be Jacare at 8,500, where I like a lot of people in his range. So more so Muniz or pass for me, but I like the pass more because I just see a three-round slower striking match. And Jacare landed 20 significant strikes in a 5-round match with Blackowitz, so I just don't see volume come from either one of these guys where they're going to score well. So give me Jacare as an old fan, but I'm not going to be betting on Jacare at this point.
It's like it's upsetting. This fight is upsetting me to break down, because Jacare is better at wrestling. He's better at BJJ, and I would say he's a massively better striker than Muniz. But he's also 41 years old. He's old. He looked horrific the last day. He looked like an old man, like an old guy who's been fighting for a lot of years. Like, you see these guys, he's been through wars. The speech is slurred. he just looks old now, man. And so how could you trust that? I can't trust him. It's a shame. It upsets me.
Look, the only reason that there's any kind of hesitation is because it's Ronaldo Jacare Souza. But the reality is, this isn't the guy that submitted Gegard Mousasi. This isn't the guy that submitted Shlemenko, submitted Robbie Lawler. We're knocked out Weidman, knocked out Brunson. We're dealing with a 41-year-old washed-up fighter. So, this is the part of the fight game that we don't like, man. That our favorite fighters get old and they're not the guys they once were. And, I mean, I got Muniz, man. I mean, Muniz is 10 years younger. And when you talk about, does he have the jits to hang with Jacare? Fuck yeah, he's got the jits to hang with Jacare. This guy's a serious jiu-jitsu player. And he's just, youth will come through in this spot, in my opinion, man. When you see a guy like Jacare get knocked out, the way he did his last fight, and then you see Kevin Holland's next 2 subsequent fights, he gets held down for 10 straight rounds, that Jacare is completely washed, because Jacare wouldn't be caught dead getting knocked out how he did a couple of years ago. Jacare would have taken down Kevin Holland and subbed him in the first round a couple of years ago. So that's all the evidence I need. And I hear people talking about, you went to a split with Jan Blachowicz, in 2019 when he was still in his 30s. And the only reason that was a split was because it was in Brazil. I guess, that one judge that scored it for Jacare, he wanted to make sure he got his new belt promotion the next week, so he had to play it safe. But the reality is that Jan Blachowicz didn't get past first gear in that fight, and he still cruised to an easy victory. But how about that Jack Hermanson fight? When Jack's out there dropping you with punches, when Jack's attacking subs on a guy like Jacare, it should be the opposite. And then the Holland fight, that's all the evidence I need. Jacare is completely washed. So I got Andre Muniz here to capitalize on a aging vet and get the biggest name win of his career. And if he comes out here and he subs Jacare, get ready for one of those like passing of the torch moments that we talk about for a while.
I'm with you guys. I am done relying on old washed up fighters. I mean, you look at them, you have memories. I have a reverse argument for the main event tonight, which we'll talk about, but in general, they have these memories of, no, this guy's good, or these wins and things that they've done. But, hammer fist from bottom position. And from Kevin Holland, who was like, he should have destroyed Holland. Agree 100%. So, yeah, unfortunate. Makes me sad. But I'm with you guys on this one. Muniz or bust in this fight. And I'm not really sure what path Jacare has to a big score on DraftKings anyway. Unlikely to submit this guy. So what's really his path? You have to knock him out? I don't like the chances. All right, let's move on. Next up, we got Matt Schnell taking on Rogerio Bontorin. Schnell's coming in at -160, the slight favorite. I consider this still like a pick'em fight with Bontorin, slight underdog at +140. The fight doesn't go to decision. Prop is sitting at -120. And Dan, I'll throw this one over to you. So to get started, you got Schnell. He's coming off a nice win here, if I remember correctly. Tyson Nam. Didn't think he was going to win that one. And I believe this is a lower weight class for him than where he's been fighting. So break this fight down for me. And did he fight at this weight class last time, or is this it looks like he's at 125. Is he moving up? What's the story with this guy? What is this? What am I seeing?
Firstly, isn't Bontorin coming back a little bit too soon from that concussion he just took like in March? Like, wasn't that like 2 months ago when Bontorin face planted against Kai Kara France? So I'm actually kind of like, well, why are you coming back so soon? Like, you need to let's relax a little bit. I get he's on a 2-fight skid. He's desperate to get back in there, but I kind of personally felt like he should have taken a little bit more time off. Now, granted, I ain't no doctor, so maybe it has no effect on him whatsoever, but it's not like he got concussed, 6 months ago. He got concussed 2 months ago, like this year. So that's already sketchy for me. With Schnell, I think Schnell's always been a very talented fighter. The issue with Schnell is his chin. I mean, I've seen Schnell get knocked out by stuff that, remember those hammer fists against Hector Sandoval, that like the 1-inch hammer fist, they didn't even look like he's gotten knocked out by some very questionable stuff. But then on the other side of things, he's got a nice point fighting style, good volume, switches his stances. He got an opportunistic submission game to go along with it. And Bontorin, is very explosive in that first round. He can crack. He can pick you up and slam you. Good jiu-jitsu to go along with it as well. So I think that first round is going to be where Matt Schnell needs to watch out. But after that, Bontorin has a significant drop-off. He does what we like to refer to as the Brazilian mummy. That's when he gives it everything he's got. Then he's super gassed by that second round, kind of becomes a bit of a walking punching bag. And that's not going to be a good look against Schnell. So I think that Bontorin does have the upside in that first round to get a finish. However, if that doesn't happen, the momentum has to swing towards Schnell. And if this fight goes to the distance, then I got to go with Matt Schnell to get it done. So I'm going to lean with Matt Schnell here. Now, at the current price, it might be a little bit high. I personally lined it a little bit closer than it currently is. And I also, like I said, I don't blame you guys for taking the shot on Bontorin. Like, I've seen Schnell get finished by very questionable stuff before, so it could happen here. I know Bontorin's hungry to get back in the win column, but all that aside, I think Schnell's the better and more well-rounded fighter, so I'll pick him to win a decision. But a decision with some sketchy moments along the way.
There we go. I like it. BigMarley, what's your take here?
Yeah, I would agree. I don't know how interested I am in Schnell on DraftKings, though, because he's 8.9K, and I don't think he can get there without a finish. So I'm more so on the Bontorin side just for DraftKings, because I think if Bontorin wins, he has a better chance at a submission and a knockout. Schnell's a little bit chinny. Bontorin comes out hot. He's aggressive. Wouldn't shock me to see him get a knockout. But I think his round one grappling could win round one or get a submission as well, possibly. And if he gets a finish in round one, he's breaking the slate at 7.3K. So I do like some Bontorin for DraftKings, but I agree with Dan's breakdown that I think Schnell's the better overall fighter. I see him winning rounds 2 and rounds 3 just by putting it all together better, keeping it on the feet, and just picking Bontorin apart, but scoring maybe 65 points in a decision. So Bontorin or pass for me, and I'll probably be more so on the pass side with my hand builds because I'm picking Schnell to win.
Man, I still have nightmare memories of full fading Tyson or Kaikara France in this damn fight against Rogerio Bontorin. Like, I did not have any exposure at all. I was like, well, unfriend you, motherfucker.
Yep, X'd him out.
X'd him out. Decision fighter, doesn't knock anybody out, doesn't score well on DraftKings, doesn't score well on Fanduel, doesn't score. Goes
got his
out.
ass kicked the whole fight too, and just gets the last second knockout in the first round.
Lands one strike. I'm fucking feeling great. Lands one strike, and I'm like, where's my papers? Forget it. See you later, guys. I'm out. Done. That's what happened that night. I have bad memories of relying on Bontorin, but I want to get my money back. And maybe that means taking a shot or two on Bontorin here, just as a giant underdog for 7,300. But, as chinny as he is, I'm definitely not fading Schnell. Hell no. He got knocked the fuck out by Kaikara France. That means I want some exposure to Schnell as well. Schnell being slightly larger guy. Neither one of these guys defends takedowns at all. They don't even seem to care. I don't know if the Bontorin numbers are negatively affected by that Ray Borg fight where Ray Borg just tossed him around and ragdolled him at 51%. But Schnell, the 53%, both of these guys show as guys who can be taken down easy. Bontorin is the one who's going to go for takedowns for the most part. Schnell not really doing that very much in his career. He wants to throw strikes. So my concern from a scoring point of view is Bontorin getting takedowns, Schnell getting back up, landing some strikes, but not doing enough volume-wise to get there. But on the flip side is I had that same thought with Nem, and of course he just knocked him the fuck out and put up a big score. So going to get exposure to both sides of this fight. For DraftKings, neither one is a priority play for me. And I probably agree that Schnell could probably get this done, particularly in the later rounds. But overall, I don't really want too much of this fight, and it's not one that I'm going to be loading up on this week on DraftKings outside of those inside the distance kind of finish hopes and dreams. I don't think either guy really gets there without that. All right. Next up, another pick'em fight. Shocker. We've got Edson Barbosa taking on Shane Burgos. Burgos, the -140 favorite. Barbosa coming back at +120. Fight goes to decision, -155. And BigMarley, we got a striking battle, baby. Boxer, kicker, against the boxer. Which wins out? What style wins out? Kicks or punches?
Yeah, I can't wait for this one. But I would say the punches are going to win out because the way Burgos pressures fighters is not going to allow for Barboza to get the kicks off the way that he really needs to win the fight or to kick his leg long enough for him to quit. I mean, he's got the best kicks in the UFC. He could get a head kick knockout, a leg kick knockout, kick him in the liver, put him down. Wouldn't shock me at all to see a Barboza knockout. He can
Shane check a leg kick?
I mean, his leg's there to be kicked, but he's just pushing forward the whole time. And I think he's going to be going after the kill. This is going to be a big name on his resume if he can get it done. And I think there's a little bit of line value there as well. I would have put Burgos as a little bit more of a favorite, and I think we're getting some recency bias with the losses on his record. And Barboza still looks good. I mean, he's a great striker. This is a striking match. So I think that's leading to people picking Barboza. I just think it's a bad stylistic matchup when Burgos is going to be the one just pushing forward and landing volume on him. And I see Burgos scoring well. Even if he doesn't get a knockout, he can score well with volume. But I think he gets a knockout. And at 8,400, if he puts up 100 plus, I think he's got a good chance of being on that optimal lineup. So Burgos is going to be one of my favorites on the card for DraftKings. Give me him by a first or second round knockout. I definitely won't fade Barboza, though. I want him in some of my MME lineups as well, just because he's dangerous. I mean, he could even get a knockout with his punches as well. I would just favor Burgos in the punching game and definitely the volume game, but the pressure is really what's going to get it done.
Dan, we like grapplers on Fanduel and DraftKings and for scoring. But the exception to it is when you've got a striker landing seven strikes per minute, that starts to add up. And even in a 3-round striking based decision, when you're landing that much, when you're throwing that much volume out there, that does start to add up. So which side of this fight are you on? Do you agree with Marley that the puncher is going to outpace the kicker here?
Well, I mean, it's not just about the amount he lands. What about the amount he absorbs, too? And I wouldn't just look at it in black and white terms of puncher versus kicker, because Barboza's got good hands, too, and Shane Burgos has good kicks, too. So I just see this as striker versus striker. And I think that Marley made some good points about the pressure of Shane Burgos, because that's historically what's given Barboza fits. The thing I'm worried about is that Shane Burgos fights with his hands down, and he gets carried away in some of these fights too much. And, he's been dropped more than once. So that's my biggest concern. But yeah, I mean, historically speaking, the way to beat a guy like Barboza is to out hustle him. And that 7 whatever strikes per minute, that's one way to do it. But I'm just so worried about Burgos' defense, man. Like he does fight with his hands down. He never corrected that mistake. Like the fight after he got knocked out by Calvin Kattar, he got dropped by Kurt Holloway. The Cub Swanson fight, I was expecting that to be his coming out party. That's your first big name, and he barely squeaked by him. No one even talks about the biggest win of Shane Burgos' career against Cub Swanson. So now he's got like that opportunity again to basically right the wrong of the Cub Swanson fight. Like, let's come out here and make a statement against Barboza. Like, they tried to get you that name win against Cub, but you stunk the place up. Now they're giving you that opportunity again against Barboza. What are you going to do with it? So it's tough, man, because the Ige fight, I know it's considered this massive robbery, but if you want to put yourself in the judge's shoes and try to make a case for Ige, the reason why Ige won was because of his pressure, because he out-hustled Barboza, especially in that 3rd round. So that's what, if I was picking Barboza, that's what I would be worried about. But yeah, I do got to go with Burgos because of that pressure and that volume. Those last 3 fights, he has landed over 100 significant strikes. He does have a higher work rate than Barboza. And I do think he's actually more durable as well. Despite him being dropped, I've seen Barboza be dropped with more questionable stuff, like a jab against Cerrone back in the day. So I do got to go with Burgos, but if he had better defense, I'd be a lot more confident.
Yeah, I'm just going to, because you guys really did a great breakdown on this, I just want to, just my thought from a DraftKings perspective, Fanduel, from the fantasy perspective of this. So what you said about the way that Burgos fights, right? The hands are down. He does that. He also doesn't have, one of the problems I always saw with the style of Burgos is he doesn't have a safety outlet. When he starts getting rocked, you know, because he's not really a wrestler, he's not a grappler, he doesn't do it. It's very uncomfortable for him. He can't he doesn't have the ability to take you down and lay on top of you for 2 minutes, recover. He's just not that guy. If he's getting rocked, you're just going to keep rocking him. So, you know, you could just see a situation where Barboza lands a head kick, the hands are down, wobbles him, and he's got nowhere to run and hide for those wobbly, 30 seconds or so after that head kick to recover. And so he could get finished. So with two guys who throw heavy fist, heavy foot, anybody can get knocked out at any time. I think so you got to have exposure to these situations. As far as I thought Barboza won the Ige fight. Personally, I thought that was one of the more egregious, but I could be wrong. I had a bet on Barboza. So, you know, I was very biased. And I don't know, whenever I have a bet on someone, I'm not sure if my biased eyes are seeing it more intense than what the reality is. But I thought Barboza won that fight. But overall, I thought he should have smoked Ige, and he didn't. So to me, that was a concern. That was one of those fights where it was like, Ige is not going to be able to take this guy down. This guy's a way better striker. And then it was like, it was close. And no, Ige couldn't take him down, or he actually did take him down, I think, a couple times. So I don't know what that means. Barboza used to be a guy you couldn't take down at all. All of a sudden he got, not that that matters here, but maybe he's getting older. Maybe he's getting weathered at age 35. I don't know. But he's definitely live to get a knockout. I agree with you guys, though. I like Burgos here. I think he's the better play. I love the volume. And again, with the age of Edson, I think that adds to the chance of some of that volume eventually leading to an accumulation of strikes-based finish. But I'm not going to say that Barboza's not live for a one-shot head kick finish here. Could happen at any moment in the fight, especially early. So another one where I'm going to kind of qualify it a little bit. I'm like that a lot on this card. Both fighters in play, but I agree with you guys. Burgos is the play, is the one who I expect to win it. All right. I don't know why this one's listed third overall. I don't know that this is the correct order. I hope it's not. This is a fight I want to happen like early in the card when I don't have to pay that close attention. Kayla Chikugian taking on Vivian Araujo. Chikugian coming in as a -135. Again, it's another pick'em fight for all intents and purposes, except for the salaries, particularly on DraftKings, which are egregious. But Chikugian coming in at -135. The comeback on Vivian is +115. Fight goes to decision is a massive -380. And I mean, there's just not, you know what? There's just not that much to say here. Chikugian is a decision machine, and she's priced at a ridiculous 8,800 on DraftKings. I don't think she's ever had a fight. Oh, except for the Antonina fight where she turned into a crazy grappler. But before that, she never had a fight where she scored anywhere near 100 points on DraftKings. Look at all these wins: 73, 58, 55, 68, 66. These are disgusting scores. Again, you know what I did this time? Full faded. You know what happened? Didn't win. Because I didn't expect her to be a takedown machine. Marley, you remember that. Like, that was another one. Rip the paper. Rip it. Done. Rip up your ticket. Finish for tonight. So, Chikugian, decision machine, priced up. Does Araujo have a chance here? And does she have a chance, Marley, to beat her and score well?
Yeah, I definitely think she has a chance to beat her. But for me, the first thing I do anytime Chookagian's on a card is I just X her out of my player pool. I just have no interest in her, especially at 8.8K. No thanks. Even if they gave her Araujo's 7.4K salary, still not interested. So that's an easy fade for me. She's not getting 118 here.
No money on May 30th, 2020.
Yeah, that was the one time it really cost me.
Yeah.
But I mean, before that, her best win was like 73 against Aldana, and Aldana is someone that's going to push the pressure, have you throw more than you usually would. And I don't see that being the case with Vivian. But I think this is a close fight where Chookagian needs it to stay at range. She'll throw out her who's and ha's and try and fool the judges a little bit. But she's not knocking Vivian out. And I don't think she can rack up takedowns on Araujo either. I would say Araujo's the better wrestler of the two. She's not great off her back, though. If she is taken down, I could see her spending a little bit too much time on her back. But I also think Araujo's got more power on the feet. She's more likely to land something big, and maybe her big shot is better than 3 or 4 who's and ha's from Chukagian when she's only landing 1 or 2 of those. So I like Araujo. It's just dog or pass for me. I think she has a much easier time paying off a $7,400 price tag than Chukagian will 8.8K, and it's a coin flip. So I'll take some Araujo. I don't see her putting up a big score because it's just hard to score against Chukagian in her style, where she's going to be dancing around the cage trying to avoid contact. But she's an underdog. I'm picking to win. She's an underdog that's live. I like her in cash games if you need her there. And I'll mix her in as an underdog that I'm putting into lineups because you got to have underdogs. And she's one of them that I like. But of the ones that I'm picking to win, I think she's going to score the least of them.
I love it. I love it. Dan, how about you? How do you see this fight going?
Yeah, look, Chukagian's kind of like the Neil Magny of that women's division, where like it looks like such a doable task. It looks like anybody can just come out there and beat her, and then people just perform very uncharacteristically against her, kind of like they would against a Neil Magny. Like, I made that tweet like, why is Li Jingliang, Jeff Neal, Robbie Lawler, and Tony Martin all going out there trying to offensively wrestle against Neil Magny? They just fight super uncharacteristic when they take on Magny, and a similar thing for Chukagian. Like, people don't really look like themselves too often. But that being said, I've been impressed with Viviane Araújo, man, and I love her footwork. I love how explosive she is. She's got some power for the weight class, good takedown defense, a get-up game as well. So to me, it comes down to her not really gassing out and the output waning down the stretch. That's what I'm most worried about, because with Chukagian, she can miss her shots and she makes these little tennis sounds and the judges view it as, oh, she landed or whatever. So she gets away with a lot of decisions that sometimes you don't really think she won. And with these Texas judges, man, if this shit's close, I'd be very worried just being on either side. But that being said, I do think Viviane Araújo has the skills to get this done. It's just about execution on fight night. If she comes out here, performs to the best of her abilities, I do think she can win this decision. So I'm going to go with Viviane. As far as scoring big, I don't expect either to score big in this fight, but pick Viviane Araújo for the upset.
I like it. Might as well. Again, on DraftKings, I just am not interested in Chukagian at all. No interest. I'm really not interested in either of them, though. This, to me, is a full fight. Normally, I would like Viviane because of her cheap salary and the fact that I think she's live for a win. Sure, why not? I'm picking Caitlin to get the win, but I think Viviane is live for a win. It's certainly close odds. My problem is I don't think she scores even if she gets the win. It's not going to be a big score. Look for like a 66 to 74 level decision win on this fight. I don't like it. Unfriend you, both of them. No interest. No interest. As a matter of fact, this fight existing on this card makes it like there's one fewer fights on the actual card than there is, because I'm just unfriending both of them. I'm not playing them. No interest in the 70-point decision win. Now, guys, before we move on to the big co-main event and main event, I want to talk about again, going back, we're doing a little contest here. We're really excited to have Dan on board with the MMA team over at DFS Army. So, in order to celebrate, Marley has convinced me to give out 5 free MMA-only memberships to those of you who are watching this stream live or on the replay. So here's how this is going to work. What we need you to do is like the video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment in the comment section on who your kill shot is for this event. We're going to pick 3 to 5 names from those people to give a free month of DFS Army MMA membership subscription to. That's a $24.99 value. So, why not check out what we do? You'll get the ownership projections, the player projections, the cheat sheets, all the awesome stuff that we do at DFS Army. When you do that, you need to, again, let me specify here. You got to like the video, subscribe to the channel, drop your comment, and then tweet that at us so we know that you did it. That means tweet at DFS Army, the DFS Army email. You could also tweet it at BigMarley, at Best Fight Picks or at Football Geek, but ideally tweet it at DFS Army. Again, like the channel, subscribe, and drop your kill shot for this week's card. If your kill shot wins and it's a true kill shot, you're going to be picked. So get in there. We're going to pick 3 to 5 people to get a free month of DFS Army MMA membership. You'll be in the chat. You can chat with Marley. You can ask me a question. You can ask Dan a question. It's great. So check it out. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and send us your kill shot to the @DFS Army Twitter account. That was a lot to say without having a script, guys. I had to, we came up with it during the pod. So
I like it. Good job.
I don't know if that was impressive to anyone else, but it's pretty impressive to me. Like, subscribe, send us your kill shot, tweet it at DFS Army. Free month of DFS Army MMA membership. There we go. All right. Plus, like the video if you like what we're breaking down. If it entertain you, why don't you like the video? Smash the like button. Go for it. Lets us know you're watching. All right. Maybe we'll do more of these public if we get a lot more, if that happens. We'll bring the kill shot to the public a little more often. All right. Co-main event. Tony Ferguson, he's back, taking on Beneil Dariush. Dariush, minus 175 favorite. Come back on Tony, plus 155. Fight goes to decision prop. Minus 155. So leaning towards a 3-rounder here, according to the odds makers. Now, Dan, I got one question for you and one question only. Is Tony Ferguson shot? Is he finished? Are we done with him? Turn you're on mute, my man.
What about now?
There you go.
It just depends what you mean. I mean, do you mean he's shot in terms of the top 5? Fuck yeah. Do you mean in terms of the top 10? Fuck yeah. But do you mean in terms of the top 25? I still think he can beat some guys in the top 25. But as far as title aspirations, that's long gone. I mean, listen, he already had so many openings in his game while he was in his prime that I'm actually surprised he got away with a lot of the shit that he got away with. It's just that now that he's almost 40 years old, he hasn't cleaned up these things. So, when you see a guy that used to get dropped all the time, but hey, he'd bounce back up and he's the boogeyman and it's all cool, we love it. Well, now you're 40 getting dropped and it's not going to look as good. So, yeah, I just think with his specific style, it won't end well. It just won't. The issue with Beneil is Beneil's the kind of guy that, he's kill or be killed. He's a Terminator. He gives no fucks about playing it safe. And that's why we love him as a fan, because Beneil's going to go out there and fight. Beneil has some of the biggest balls in the entire division. Like, Beneil always comes to fight, man. And when you're laying almost 2-1 on a guy that, if we're gonna criticize Beneil, I ain't gonna criticize his jiu-jitsu. I ain't gonna criticize his striking. If I have to make some criticism for Beneil, it's the chin and the gas tank. He has been knocked out more than once, and he has gassed out. Now, granted, he's actually undefeated when fights go to decision. He's 7-0-1 with that 0-1. With that one fight being a draw, which I actually thought he won. As far as I'm concerned, he's 8-0 when fights go to decision. But on the flip side, the way he fights, that's what gives me pause when you're laying almost minus 200 on a guy like him, because even though I think he's going to dominate the minutes of this fight, Tony Ferguson, like I said, even in his prime, he was getting held down by Danny Castillo. He was getting dropped by Anthony Pettis. He's just so tough that he can overcome those spots. He's going to get dominated in the minutes of this fight here against Beneil. It's just that when he finally does have his little moments, like, is he going to knock Beneil out? Is Beneil going to gas and get submitted like that? Those are the kind of things I'm worried about. But I mean, I definitely agree with Beneil being favored, especially at this point in their careers. Now, if this was 2 years ago, the line would be flipped, but this is not 2 years ago. This is now. And some people are saying, well, you can't just write off Ferguson because of those last 2 fights. Look who it was against. I don't just look at who it was against. I look at what actually happened. And the Gaethje fight was very uncomfortable to watch. I mean, the guy was just eating clean head strike after clean head strike, like by one of the hardest hitters. And you just wonder how someone's going to come back after that. Well, we saw how he came back after that. He got dominated pillar to post in every facet of MMA against Charles Oliveira. He made Oliveira look like a future world champion. Now we'll see Saturday night if Oliveira is indeed a future world champion or if Ferguson's just that washed up. But yeah, I think Ferguson's days of being a title challenger are long gone. And I think Benny's going to come out here and win. It's just about, Benny gets carried away. Benny loves to fight. Benny, like I said, Benny doesn't give a shit about playing it safe. So, in situations where, hey, let's just take him down, hold him down, and who cares if it's exciting? That's not Beneil's style. Beneil would rather go out on a shield. So as a fan, you got to love it. But as an investor, that's where you got to be careful with a price like this. But the pick is Dariush.
There we go. Big Marley, Beneil is basically Charles Oliveira. Like, stylistically in this fight, I mean, we just saw something very, very similar go down, but with a worse chin probably. So do you agree with Dan? This plays out kind of like kind of the same, or at least with Beneil with his hand raised at the end of it?
Well, I do agree with everything Dan said, but I do think this should be a closer to 50-50 fight, and I like the 70, 600 on Ferguson. I could definitely see Ferguson winning this fight. I think he needs to keep it more of a striking match. Maybe he can knock Dariush out or just win on volume. And I think any win from Ferguson's going to outscore that $7,600 price tag. So I like Ferguson a little bit more than Dan does, but I agree with everything he said. And Dariush is, not only is he on a 6-fight win streak, but he scored 95 or more Draftkings points in all 6 of those fights. So he could definitely go out there, out wrestle Ferguson, submit Ferguson, knock Ferguson out, and score 100 plus as well. So I like this fight as a whole. It'll be one of my top 2 or 3 fights on the card in general. But I think Ferguson's going to be my favorite underdog on the card just for his potential ceiling in a win. And I would rather get, like 50% Ferguson at his price than Dariush, when I do like other favorites to score 100 plus. So I'll be mixing Dariush into my lineups, but Ferguson will be close to a core play just because he's my favorite underdog on the card.
Yeah, I mean, Ferguson's takedown defense at one point was considered really, really good. And again, it kind of like the veil was, people used to talk about Ferguson being somebody who could counter Khabib. I mean, he was talked about as somebody people really wanted to see. The one fight Khabib didn't do. And now here we are, we saw Olivera, and let me get another narrative that was a thing, that Olivera couldn't really get a takedown, that he's more of a guy that's not a great wrestler, but if he's opportunistic. And Olivera came out and just took this guy down and controlled him and had no trouble. So that is very concerning, because if Olivera did it, why wouldn't Dariush be able to do the same thing? And to the point of Dariush's cardio issues, man, I kind of think that's a thing of the past. Like, he didn't show very many issues with his cardio going up against Fahea in that fight. So, and there was a lot of grappling happening. There was a lot of things that would drain you going on in that fight. So he didn't get drained in this fight. Went 3 rounds, 5 takedowns, looked strong the whole time. So I'm not worried about Beneil's gas tank here. What I'm worried about mainly is the chin. It's really the chin. He's been knocked out. He's untrustworthy. Alex Hernandez. He's had knockouts by guys who weren't Ramsey Najim. I know it's a long time ago, but he's been knocked out by guys that weren't that good. And so I think it's always there. Ferguson, not much of a finisher, not a guy who's getting a lot of knockouts, certainly lately or really throughout his career, a lot of submission wins. So I don't know if that's in play here, but it's certainly something to keep in mind that Dariush I'll go back to kind of what you said, Dan, laying chalk on Dariush here feels a little sketchy. Guy's been knocked out. He's let us down in some big spots before. And he's going up against somebody who just 2 fights ago I had picked to beat Olivera. So I'm trying not to let the recency bias tingles get to me too strong here. But, he's looked visibly worse in the last couple of fights than he had in the past, Ferguson. So he could be nearing that end. And that's a theme on this card with I would say Barbosa and with Jacare and with Ferguson is like, is this guy too old? Is this guy over the hill? I don't know. Seems like he might be. But overall, this is definitely a fight I want a lot of exposure to. Action fighters on both sides of it. I think there's potential for a finish. Either guy can get there. Either guy could score really well. So for me, give me a lot of exposure to it. Again, I'm not worrying about salaries this week. I think the salaries are generally just irrelevant. So, this idea of favorite underdog, yes, I don't want to pay $8,800 for Blonde Fighter and her 76-point decision win. But, with these guys, hell yeah. I want Dariush. I want Ferguson. I'm picking Dariush to get the win because he's looked the best he's ever looked in his last few fights. Like he looks like he's in his prime right now, where Ferguson has looked like over the hill and just off the last few fights. So I'm going to get Dariush just for that reason. But, I don't put it past Ferguson to find a way to get it done here either. But the first thing you have to do against Dariush is keep it standing. And he's got to prove that he's able to do it, because I didn't see that against... I don't think he can. I think Dariush is going to take him down and he's going to grapple him and possibly submit him. That's really what I think is going to happen. But, I'm leaving open the possibility that he can get that knockout or something along the way. But Dariush, man, I convinced myself even further. I like Dariush a lot here. Not betting it, but I like him a lot. All right. Main event time. And again, a reminder. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment with who your kill shot is for the card. And we're going to pick 5 people to give a free month of DFS Army MMA membership, get the ownership projections, the player projections, the breakdown cheat sheets from Dan, Marley, myself, cash picks from Eric Forsland, a.k.a. George R.R. Martin. We've got GRRM's clone in DFS Army. You don't even know about him, Dan. You got to see this guy. Looks like GRRM. He's the man. Cash game breakdowns. You don't see that every day. So, main event time. DuBronx, the aforementioned. Last we saw, he was putting a beating, an epic beating, on Tony Ferguson. Taking him down at will. We were all like, hey, he doesn't go for takedowns. All of a sudden, he got how many takedowns in that fight? I don't know. Bunch? 3? Only needed 1 each round. That ended the round. There was no get-ups from those. He's taking on Michael Chandler, who, last we saw, was putting Dan Hooker, previously known as the unfinishable Dan Hooker, as a iron-chinned Dan Hooker, put him to sleep. Now we all love Chandler. We saw him knock a guy out real quick. So here we go. We've got a championship fight. And Dan, I will throw this one to you. Break this fight down. This is the big one. We're paying for the pay-per-view to watch a new champion crowned.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. And this is one of those fights where I literally believe they fight 10 times. You can see a different outcome all 10 times. This should be exciting as hell. And I disagree with people discrediting Michael Chandler, saying he doesn't deserve to be in the position he is. I mean, I don't know where y'all started watching MMA, but where I come from, if you finish Eddie Alvarez, Benson Henderson, and Dan Hooker, like not too many people are out here getting finishes against those guys. So you got that under your resume, that's legit enough for me. Because when you talk about Charles DuBronx's current win streak, now the performances are amazing, but there's only 2 top 10 wins, and they're against Kevin Lee and Tony Ferguson. So I'm just saying that let's not shit on Mike Chandler and then kiss DuBronx's ass. Let's call it how it really is. But that being said, there's something to be said about a guy like DuBronx, who has been in the UFC since he was like 19 or 20 years old. We've literally seen all the ups and downs, and his submission ability has never been in question. His striking has never been in question. It's always been, when's the mental going to catch up with the physical? Because I've seen a lot of quit spots with DuBronx in the past, whether the Max Holloway fight, which was a massive head scratcher back in the day against Cerrone, against Jim Miller, against Lamas, against Pettis. So he's had a lot of questionable spots, but has he truly overcome them, or has he had a very, favorable, have these 8 matches that he's been fighting just been super favorable. You know, Christos Giagos, David Tamor, all these guys that aren't in the top 10. Now he handled his steps up. He's handled his step ups how he's supposed to. I mean, Kevin Lee submitted him. Only man to dominate Tony Ferguson bell to bell the way he did. Like, I know Gaethje beat Ferguson, but the way Olivera did it, like, that was in every facet of MMA, and Tony didn't even have a second of success in that fight. So that was it definitely put me on notice. So I'm under the inclination that the mental has caught up with the physical. It's just, you know, if, you know, Chandler puts that pressure on him and puts him in a bad spot, like, is Olivera going to quit again like he did in the past? Because he hasn't been put in any bad spots on this current run. None of these guys have. The only top 10 guys he's fought are a head case in Kevin Lee and Tony Ferguson, who's almost 40 years old. That's why he hasn't been. I just still have questions. Now with Chandler, I got a lot of questions on that side too. Now I think Chandler deserves to be in the spot he's in. I think he's a D1 wrestler with big power, and he goes forward. He's got insane pressure. But if you remember that Brent Primus fight with the calf kicks can be a big factor against Chandler. What's the first strike that Olivera threw against Ferguson? Actually, the calf kick. So I'm very curious if Olivera comes out here, tries to chop down the legs of Chandler and you know, tries to take it from there. Chandler has also never been submitted, but I would say Olivera is probably the best submission artist in lightweight history, up there with, you know, Benil and Carlos Diego. I think he's right there. So yeah, this should be just such a hell of a fight. It's just really about how is it going to play out Saturday night, because I truly believe these two fight 10 times. Like I said, it's going to be 10 different results. I'm going to lean Olivera because, like I said, there's something to be said about paying your dues in the UFC for over 10 years, coming here from just the kids, and now he's a grown-ass man in his 30s, literally seeing everything there is to see. But Chandler's paid his dues too. You can't ignore that. So I'm going to say DuBronx gets it done Saturday night. But I mean, again, it's not the most confident pick in the world because of how much respect I have for Chandler. I think Chandler's the real deal too. I think he's got that winner's mindset. With Chandler, his issue is he's one of these max effort guys. So you'll see him kind of gas out down the stretch in fights. It's not because he's not out here running his miles. It's because if you're on the highway and you're speeding and you're going over 100 miles per hour, it's only science that that gas tank is going to dwindle down. You don't go 100 miles per hour on the highway and your gas tank gets better. It's naturally you're going to have to hit a pit stop soon. So that's the issue with Chandler. You go so goddamn hard that, you know, at some point he's going to have to rest a little bit. And resting against a guy like Charles DuBronx Olivera, the kind of submission series he'll put you through, I just want to see if he can put Chandler through that series. If Chandler gets out, is it going to be like the Paul Felder fight where Olivera's like, all right, I've had enough? Or is Olivera really truly mature to the point where now he can go all 5 no matter what's thrown his way? So that's why I got a lot of questions, but I'm a lean with Olivera. He's paid his dues in the octagon. Chandler's paid his dues too, but in the octagon's a different story. I'm going to go with Olivera to be the new champ. Let's see what happens, man.
There we go. Dance pick, Olivera for the championship. How about you, Big Marley? Which way do you see this one going?
Yeah, I agree with the breakdown, but I'm always going to pick DuBronx. I picked DuBronx over everybody in the division. I think on his best day, he even beats Khabib. So there's no way I can't pick him over Chandler. I love how his stand-up has changed. He's aggressive. He's going to be the one pushing forward. I like him in the clinch. Wouldn't shock me to see him knock out Chandler, but his submission game is just the best offensive submission game that I've ever seen. And I called for him to be a champ over a decade ago. Sticking with it. It's going to happen on Saturday. It won't shock me at all to see Chandler go out there and blitz him and put him away in round 1 or round 2. I think it would be a knockout from Chandler, or just it could be a 5-round war that Chandler could win as well. I think the knockout is his best chance, and if he gets that knockout, he's on the nuts. So you're going to need some Chandler as well, but I'm going to take a stand on this one, and I'm going to go heavy on the Olivera side, probably 70-30. If not even on the mini-max, just lock in my boy 150 lineups with DuBronx. It's $150. You know, I wouldn't do that in the $25 if you're risking that sort of money. I would go closer to the 65, 35 even in that situation. But for $150, I might just say, fuck it, let's go, and root for my boy DuBronx to get it done. So give me him by submission. I think he can submit anybody in the world. Maybe even I could see him going in for a takedown of his own and getting a guillotine choke. Like, he's been submitted once or twice with the guillotine. Wouldn't shock me here. And I would say Chandler's the better wrestler of the two for the most part. But fuck, man, Bronx has some good wrestling himself, and nobody has a better offensive jiu-jitsu game. So give me the submission, and I'll be glad that it's finally happening after 11 years after I said it will.
So here's the thing with this fight. I do believe that Chandler has the wrestling to keep the fight standing. So that's a key. When you try to play out in your head, how's this fight going to go? Do I think that DuBronx is going to be able to get takedowns and bring this to the grappling zone? The answer is no. I don't think so. I think Chandler is going to be able to keep this on the feet if he wants to, or even get a takedown of his own. I see him as the superior wrestler in the situation, and he should be able to keep it standing, right? So the simple breakdown would be, well, if he keeps it standing, DuBronx is more of a grappler. So, Chandler will have an advantage. But we have seen DuBronx looking incredibly well on the feet lately, like looking like a killer. And this is part of that whole, I remember back to a version of a guy versus the guy I've seen recently. And can I wipe out the old memories or not? Because the old version of him, and it wasn't that long ago that he was taking an ass whooping to Paul Felder. Paul Felder's a tough motherfucker, like that guy a lot. But, he put it on DuBronx in 2017. It's 2021. A few years have passed. But the striking was superior with Felder. And when Felder was able to get back up or get out of the grappling, it was over for DuBronx. I kind of think he quit in that one, whatever we want to call it. I don't think he'll be able to get his grappling going here. It's 5 rounds. It's a lot of fighting. I think somebody's knocking somebody out. And I think it's going to be a striking situation or a knockdown into the grappling. But I don't see straight takedowns working the way they worked against Ferguson. I'm actually going to go the opposite way here. I'm going to go with Chandler to get this one done. Super close fight. Marley, totally back you up. You have been on DuBronx, not only been on DuBronx, but bet DuBronx pretty much every single event. And the dude's on an 8-fight win streak. So, it's been right every single time, 8 times in a row, which is great. And there's a lot of positive feedback to that. But I'm going to go Chandler here. Obviously, super close fight. Going to get exposure to both sides. DraftKings, you have to. This is an all-in fight. All in. I want this fight's going to be in every lineup that I make. The inside the distance prop is, super high. Minus 355 doesn't go to decision. It's a very high likelihood that this will finish at some point along the way. I think it's actually going to finish in the first 2 to 3 rounds. I think the striking is going to be serious here. I want to see what happens when DuBronx is put in a situation where things aren't just going his way, and we just haven't seen it yet. So am I betting this? Hell no. Do I have confidence enough to go even 70% one side of this fight to 30% of the other? That's why I said no. I don't have that confidence at all. I'm not doing that. Like, to me on DraftKings, you just pretty much, if you like my favorite, I'm going to go 55% to 45%. I want to make sure that I make it known that I prefer one to the other, but beyond that, I don't prefer them that much, So one of these guys is going to be on the nuts lineup, probably. So I want a lot of exposure to both. I'll throw away the other half of the lineups. That's what you got to do on DraftKings most of the time. But I'm going to go with Chandler in this one, just because I think his wrestling can negate that BJJ factor from DuBronx, which is, I think, what makes DuBronx special. We're going to find out if DuBronx's striking is special. It's looked really good, but I don't know if it's special. We're going to find out. He definitely did not choose to stand and strike with Ferguson, though. He was piecing him up whenever they were on the feet, but he quickly would take the fight down, and that would be that. So he certainly didn't choose to stand and bang with Ferguson. So we'll see what happens here, but I'm going to take Chandler here for the slight upset, but very minor confidence. Lock for Fanduel captain. I mean, I like taking your captain on Fanduel from this fight. So be it one guy, be it the other guy, I like getting it from this fight because this fight's just really likely to end inside the distance. A couple other fights have high inside the distance prop. I'm going to save that for the kill shot because I got a good kill shot for that. So, all right, that'll do it for the UFC 262 breakdown, and we are at the kill shot part of the podcast where we each give our favorite, probably underdog or low on fighter or somebody that maybe not a lot of people will be on that we think can win you the tournament this week on Fanduel, Draftkings, whatever you play. I'll go to you first, Big Marley. Let's get a kill shot going for this. Actually, before you go, Vince is our, I'm going to call him our celebrity or our celebrity commenter, DFS Army subscriber, and crushes kill shots most weeks. Although last week he had a tough one. Went against my boy, Sir Gregor. Never do that. Never do that. Not the best kill shot right there for Vince. But here we go. Kill shot from Vince. He's got Soriano as his kill shot going up against Christos Giagos. Soriano's to get a finish in that fight. So that's Vince. That doesn't negate anybody else from getting one. And remember, guys who are watching, to be eligible to win the free month of DFS Army MMA subscription, you post, like, subscribe to the video, and post your kill shot. Tweet it out to us. So here we go. Big Marley, who's your kill shot for this week?
Jamie Pickett, first round knockout over this fraud Beverly Hills Ninja.
That was mine. All right. Jamie Pickett for the kill. How about you, Dan? Who do you like for a special win here?
Oh, I got to go with Andre Muniz to do the unthinkable and submit the great Jacare Souza and blow everybody's mind. Andre Muniz.
That would be nuts.
That would be nuts. And I think it's really, I love both of those kill shots. I'm going with Pickett as well. I'm sorry, Marley. It's just too much. That fight has to be exposed. You got to be on it. And the Beverly Hills Ninja, I just want to go against him. So I don't normally like to.
I don't know that we have to be on the right side. I mean, if Pickett's durable enough, I don't know that Wright's going to land enough volume to pay off 8,100. I'm not a believer in his grappling. I mean, he's not even looking to lock his hooks in. He's going after necks. I think it's Pickett or pass really in this. So I don't mind the kill shot, but I don't think we have to target the fight as a whole.
No, you could probably straight fade. It's just Pickett probably going to knock this guy out because Wright is that kind of guy that gets himself knocked out. Yeah, I got to go with that one. The other one, I guess I could go if I had to choose a not an overlap kill shot, I'd go with Grundy here to get the win over Vanada and maybe score decent with his grappling. But I do like Pickett a lot as a kill shot, so I'm going to stick with that one. All right, guys, that's going to do it. Thanks for watching. For Dan, for Big Marley, for myself, good luck this weekend. DFS Army subscribers will be back. We'll have our cheat sheets up probably by the end of tonight or tomorrow. We'll get our picks in there. And, of course, the Domination Station locked and loaded with ownership projections, player projections, everything you need to smash. And we will be in DFS Army Slack, talking fights, updating, watching the weigh-ins, doing all that good stuff. So good luck this weekend, everyone. Let's make some money.